Welcome to Does It Matter? Now, I know it might seem counterintuitive, but I've come to the conclusion in recent years that our innate need for comfort is the intrinsic source of our most monstrous and selfish actions. It underpins the stories we tell ourselves and then others, and narrative is the foundational feature by which we humans communicate to each other. We tell stories to each other. We weave stories within our brains to make sense of the world, to construct a structure within which we find ourselves to be acceptable. So it's a mirror. It grasps the narratives of our lives. It grasps the stories that we believe of others. It's foundational to human civilization, to human psychology, and to the behavioural mechanics of what makes us what we are. And as a result, a lot of it is not thought out. A lot of it is not from the cerebellum, the cerebrum, the more advanced features of what makes us human. It's a mindless grasping for peace, often driven by our inner hurt, and more often than not becomes projected externally into the often mean-spirited and even terrible functional beliefs that we have of ourselves, of the world, of others, and it almost guarantees we'll never know actual real peace while we believe such self-serving confections. So again, it's counterintuitive, but the need for peace, the need for comfort can drive some of the most wild delusions that human beings have, the most twisted, warped artifice that our brains can produce comes from that need to that almost primal childlike need, that infant-like need to be pacified, to be comforted, for quiet, for acceptable peace. And in reality, it doesn't give us what we seek from it anyway. It offers excuses, justifications, useful fictions to maintain a facade, an ongoing facade that shifts and deviates away from reality with every slight change of reality that we imagine in our heads. Every time you tell a lie, every time you knowingly deviate from the most ruthless, brutal reality, every time you soften the blow, you are shifting away from reality, from truth, towards lies, towards delusion. We see that mirrored in the practices and lives and social institutions all around us. The reality that we do need as a species and as individuals to confront is that we're only really free to recognize reality for what it is and its deeply confronting nature, or we can weave an acceptable and comforting covering for it, something to make it bearable, which leaves us with long-term consequences which we see people reap days, weeks, months, even decades later, baffled often as to how this came about, why they're in the situation they're in, and as a result, unable to be fully accountable for their own lives. And we know where that goes. Nowhere good. Only the brave, unvarnished soul can stand to see reality, to stare into the abyss and not become the deluded puppet of their angst and of their mythical stories. Be untrammeled. Reject ease. Reject narratives of slippery, convenient culpability. Let comfort come upon you only after you have embraced its twin of suffering and the lessons that are hidden within it. Most of the time, human beings, quite rationally, are trying to mitigate their suffering. We try to mitigate that which causes us pain. But my personal experience, and the experience that seems to be reflected in many, many millions of other people who've written about it, is that actually makes it worse in the long run. At some point, the consequences of your own mythologizing, demonization, and so on will come back on you, and it's not good. I've experienced this firsthand. It isn't. It's dreadful, and it's such a waste of your life. It's such a waste of your time. It's such a waste of your energies to do that. Don't believe things that are convenient to believe. Don't believe things that make you feel better simply because they make you feel better. Don't believe in lascivious conspiracy theories because that feeds your messianic complex or makes you feel justified in some way. There's all kinds of ways in which we get a payoff for warping and blunting reality, or twisting it into a shape that we find more acceptable for whatever reason. Don't do that. Embrace the facts, and when you don't have enough of the facts, embrace uncertainty. Be cool with going, I don't know. I don't understand yet. I don't fully grasp this. You have to be cool with that. If you're not, then you are telling yourself lies. You are making shit up to fill in the gaps. Don't do that. Don't do that. I've done that. It doesn't work. Lots of us have done it. It doesn't work. Okay? It just sets you up for even more steep falls down the track. Be cool with being just a normal, flawed human being trying to work shit out. It's okay. We're just primates. We're just messy, clever little monkeys. And once you can be cool with that, you can draw closer to reality. You can start to abandon the narratives that have shaped and warped your life for years, perhaps even decades. The only freedom is in embracing reality, is in having the courage to do that. Be free. Be free. And accept the price that it will lever suffering upon you. It will require suffering to be free. No one ever struck their chains off without violence. Ironically, though, most of that violence is reflected outwards. Blame, 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 poke, poke, pin, poke the finger, demonize. No, go inside. Break the chains that are on the inside first. Deal with your own shit first. And then the world will look like a very different thing to you. The world looks very different to me now than it did 20 years ago. Very different. As I break my inner chains, I see the world very differently. I see people very differently. You can't unsee that shit either. And that's awesome. It stops you lying to yourself. Oos.